Happy Sunday, everybody. It's time for another edition of the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report. He is Otis Kirk. I am Courtney Mims. And I hope you're having a happy Sunday. Hopefully, everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. I know a lot of you right now feeling a little disappointed. That's because Arkansas fell to Missouri yet another time in Como, 28-21, the final score. And Otis, I hate to say it, but I feel like it's a different week. The same things we're talking about with a loss with this Arkansas team: turnovers, penalties, bad clock
Well,
management. I mean, what were your takeaways from the game?
my takeaway were the same thing that beat them in week 2, beat them in week 12, and it beat them in between week 2 and week 12 too. It wasn't like it was a 2-week deal. You go back to 6 losses every time they lost the turnover battle. And I'm telling you, Courtney, I really believe this too. Had Louisiana Tech's offense not been so bad, they would have lost that game too. They lost the turnover battle. I just don't think the Louisiana Tech's offense was good enough to take advantage of the gifts they were given. But Arkansas handed that game to Missouri. They handed the game to Oklahoma State. They handed it to Texas A&M. Fumbling at the 10-yard line. Even the LSU game, you give them the ball at the 2-yard line. I mean, it was 16-10 at the time. They've just self-destructed. People flipped out when I predicted 8 wins. Truth be told, they probably should have won 9 games this year. I'm telling you, but it's sad to say that the same things that beat them in week 2 haunted them all the way through the season, all the way into week 12. The exact same things: turnovers, uh, penalties, obviously, and just the same old thing. And it wasn't just the penalties. I'm sorry, it wasn't just the turnovers. Arkansas giving the ball away. It was the fact that the Arkansas defense couldn't get the ball,
Mm.
weren't creating any turnovers, so it was a one-way street. If you give the ball away twice, but you get it back 3 times, you take away the Auburn game, there really wasn't much defense taking away the ball from other teams. So it's really a disappointing season in my book because Arkansas was better than the 6-6 record, and I think they were a lot better than 6-6 record, and I think they self-destructed, and they just weren't good enough to do that. And that was pretty much the point each week, in my 5 keys to victory on Pig Trail Nation Hogville was don't give the ball away. I mean, don't turn the ball over in excessive penalties because Arkansas is good, but they weren't good enough to overcome that. And then, like I said, the top side of that, they weren't creating any turnovers, so it was a one-way deal, and it was just too much. It was too much to overcome.
I
And,
mean,
but it's disappointing though in week 2 that you're doing the same thing in week 12,
yeah,
Courtney.
and who do you put that on, Otis? Because that's where a lot of the fan base, you hear a lot of people throughout the season, they have their criticisms of this coaching staff and of Sam Pittman in particular. But who do you put that on? And that's where, I've been. My dad's been a coach for years and years and years and years, and he even said to me, "It's like a lot of that you have to take blame as a coaching staff. You have to put it on yourself as a coach. They can't." I get it. Some of it is talent, some of it is the players, but they had the talent. Like you said, they should have won more ball games. They
Well,
had the talent. So do you put that on the coaching staff, Otis, in your
yeah,
opinion?
I put most of it on the coaching staff. Now, I will say this: 2 of the key players, 2 of the best players on the team were the guys that were culprits of most of the turnover, and that was Jaquindon Jackson and Taylon Green. So, and I'm not blaming them, but I mean, I think they deserve partial blame because they were, yesterday Taylor's holding the ball like a loaf of bread, running with that ball out there like a loaf of bread. You simply can't do that. I
No.
thought Jaquindon was secured the ball; it just came out. I mean, that happens, but he's had some fumbles. But they've had interceptions, and it's not just those 2 guys, but sometimes like the pick 6 at Oklahoma State, Taylor was hit when he threw the ball. The offensive line he's been running for his life a lot of the time. So I put it on all of them, but I mean, yeah, oh yeah, you can't say the coaching staff, but you can't just say Pittman. I mean, I put it back on the coordinators too, and the assistant coaches and everybody else on position coaches. I put it on everybody. I mean, you had the Louisiana Tech game, I guess it was, where Satana got blocked. A blocker got blocked into him, and he fumbled again. And that happened at the Oklahoma State game, and there's no excuse for that. You don't see that happening twice to anybody else in the league. You just don't see that same play. There's no excuse for getting blocked into the punt returner. I mean, they cured it for a while, and then it hid them against. Like I said, I think the Louisiana Tech game, just a simple case of Louisiana Tech wasn't very good on offense. They were pretty good on defense, but on offense, they just weren't good enough to take advantage of the errors, or they might have beaten Arkansas themselves. But I paid on everybody, Courtney.
Mm.
But yeah, the coaching staff was for sure. But it's not like they were like underachievers. I mean, because like I said, two of the better players, Taylor and Jaquindon, had quite a few of those turnovers. So just it's just you got to protect football. You just can't give it away like that.
I know. I mean, 28 fumbles in a single season. That, I mean, you look at that number and you're like, is that real? I
Yeah,
had to go through and count them up because I didn't
yeah.
believe it. And then
No,
I went, well, I mean, that ball security has been an issue this year. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, I talked about it at the beginning of the season. That was one of the biggest critiques when I talked to my
yeah.
friends who cover that Utah team. I said, wow, I mean, like Jaquindon Jackson, man, he's a talent. And they said, yeah, but ball security, that's one of his issues. Ball security and staying healthy. And what do we see this season with him? And so, it's something we talked about at the beginning of the year. It's just maddening that we're still talking about it now at the
Yeah.
end of the regular season.
Well,
You hope that they go into the bowl game and maybe, I don't know. I mean, you kind of
well,
just are sitting here in this holding pattern of like, you don't know what's going to happen in the bowl game depending on opt outs and what bowl game they
yeah.
get and things like that. But it's like, gosh, I hope we're not sitting here after that game too and going, same problems, same
Well,
problems.
yeah, but Talon had a lot of the same issues at Boise State
Mm,
last year too.
yeah.
He had nine, I believe,
Yeah, it was
maybe it's
11 touchdowns to 9
11 touchdown
interceptions. Is that
passes,
right?
nine interceptions.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I knew it was either. I was thinking nine touchdowns and seven, but you're right. It was 11 touchdowns, nine interceptions. There were a difference in two of interceptions and touchdowns. I really thought Bobby might get that out of him this year, and I don't know what happened there because Bobby's a very good quarterback coach and coordinator and stuff, but for whatever reason, it didn't translate, and there was still a lot of turnovers there. And I mean, but you can't just say, well, it just happens because it doesn't just happen. And so much of it was the same players, the same problems, the same deals that happened in week 2 happened in week 12. They had field goal issues against Oklahoma State, and they had them throughout the season at various times. But really, it was the fumbles and the turnover. But those penalties, I mean, that's just an undisciplined team when you just have constant penalties. And I thought some of those were I thought that holding call on Josh Prine yesterday, I thought that was pretty weak call. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but but I mean, you put yourself. I don't know. I thought there was some weak. I thought there was a weak call. I thought a couple of those scuffles they could have called on both teams, and they didn't. They called it on Missouri, so that kind of evened out. But I did feel like the holding call on Braun was a little weak call. But even at that, I mean, that's one call. The rest of them, I mean, but you do that when you put yourself in a position of doing you're he did reach for the guy, and he had his right hand out there. So I mean, you can call that. It's just sometimes they don't call that, but every referee and crew is different. Crew is different, so they called it, and but it's just unfortunate. But like I said, the sad thing is we're still sitting here week 12 talking about the same things we talked about after Jacob and I went through about 30 something things after the Oklahoma State game on
Oh, I
this
know. I remember it was a
25, 30
legendary
things
rant.
on this segment. And you can apply a lot of those same things to the game yesterday. And not just that game, but you saw what happened against Tennessee when they played a clean game.
Yeah. They won the game. They
That's why I
won.
said this team's got talent. They're capable of doing that because you saw what they did against Tennessee.
They
And
won the game. They won the game.
yeah,
That's
they didn't
it.
turn the ball over. They didn't have a lot of penalties against Tennessee, and they won the game.
I,
And Tennessee was one of the better teams they played. And they made Ole Miss look like Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. I mean, they're not that good. They lost games. They self-destructed at LSU. They lost to Kentucky at home. They lost to Florida. Ole Miss shouldn't have ever beat Arkansas like that. It's just I don't know. It's just been one of those years, it wasn't. But
I
I'm
think that's
not one
why.
of
But
those. Well, Arkansas doesn't have any talent. I'm not buying that. They had
no,
enough.
and I'm
They
not either. I agree with you that this team had talent, and you're absolutely right, Otis. When you predicted your record at the beginning of the year, I said, "Wow, that's crazy to think about, but maybe it could happen." And then when
well,
you watch this team play, you're like, it absolutely could have happened. And
yeah, I
so,
mean, as bad as they played, they won 6, Courtney, and
uh,
there's no way they should have lost to Oklahoma State. I don't
I
care if it was week 2 or week 11 because Oklahoma State started losing after, but they should have beaten them in week 2. So then
yeah,
you take take the A&M and Missouri games, you just split those two and you're at 8 wins.
Yeah.
No, they should have won 8 games or 9 games. I mean, I'm not apologizing for my pick. I think
No.
that
No.
right on.
And you shouldn't
And,
apologize. You
and I called a lot of hell about it, but I don't care because I mean, I really think that the team should have won those. They won 6, like I said, giving games away. And we saw, like as I said, we saw in the Tennessee game what they can do when they played when they played clean football. They played well, and that fumble at the 10-yard line. If they don't do that against A&M, you don't know how that game turns out. Probably win it.
yeah.
And so I think LSU was going to beat them anyway, but we've got to remember there was 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. It's 16-10. LSU, Arkansas has football. And then that interception and return to the 2-yard line, that bang gets over with after that. And the air came out of our, but that's what happens when you give the ball away. And especially when you compound that by not getting the ball back on defense, you're not forcing turnovers. So it was really, it's just a season that, disappointing season, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than just say it was very disappointing to me.
Yeah,
I
and
expected
it's
more of
just
this
it
team.
was disappointing to the fans as well, and that's why again,
Yeah,
it's not about that they won 6 games. I mean, because usually in a season you're like, yeah, they got bowl eligible, but this team could have been so much more, and I think that's
should
why
have been.
so many people are disappointed. So many fans are sitting there today going, this team could have been so much more, and they fell short, and that was the biggest letdown. Of this year, and I know I know you're supposed to get excited going to a bowl game. I get that. It's not the same sentiment. It's not the same sentiment this year than in years past. And so I get completely where you're coming from. I'm going to drive myself mad talking about this. So let's talk about something of the name of the show, which is Arkansas football recruiting. And so we're going to get a recruiting update from you as well, Otis. Let's talk about what people want to know. The early signing period starts on Wednesday. So
Yeah.
give us an update of who we're looking at for Arkansas there.
Biggest question mark right now, of course, obviously, is Tavion Wallace, a 4-star linebacker from Georgia. He's visited Florida State for the Florida game. He's been at Florida State quite a bit. He's been to Georgia. He's looking around. Arkansas is trying to sign him. People ask me why I don't provide an update. Well, I mean, he's committed to Arkansas until he says he's not. So, I mean, we all know he's taking visits. So, yeah, I mean, but I mean, whether he's going to sign with Arkansas or not, I don't know. I mean, I look at it as he's committed to Arkansas until he says he's not. But I also look at this. I've said consistently through the year, if a kid's taking other visits, he's not a solid commitment. But he has said he's coming to Arkansas until he says differently. Then that's what I'll believe. But I mean, it's obvious you'd be naive not to think that he could flip that commitment to Florida State or Georgia. I think it'd be very naive not to think that he could, and he may very well do it, but he hasn't yet.
It's just kind of interesting that he is kind of looking around. I mean, I know I know they do that. I know they absolutely have that in their right. But it's interesting now with Florida State coming out and hiring Gus Malzahn as their offensive coordinator, which took took the college football world by surprise yesterday. I think a lot of people were going, "Whoa, that's an interesting move there." I mean, do you think there is something there? Maybe that they're maybe looking at Travis Williams and going, maybe there's something there. I don't know. I mean,
Could be, Courtney. I don't know. I mean, I don't have an insight at Florida State, so I don't know what they're thinking. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility. One thing about it, we know he's not going to Florida State because of down season Arkansas had. I mean, because Florida State was awful this year. I mean, and I get part of the reason why is they had a lot of players in the NFL that was on that team. My Rams have 2 of them. First 2 picks were from Florida State, but they should have. I didn't think they would be that bad. But Norvell's a good coach. He'll turn that around. People talking about firing him. Mike Norvell will turn that around. He's a good coach. But I don't know. I don't know about Travis Williams. I'm just not big on. If I don't have, I don't have any
yeah,
source at all that tells me anything about Florida State. So, but yeah, I mean, I know Tavion's been looking. Georgia was hard on him. So, but like I said, he's committed to Arkansas right now. Whether he'll sign with them or not, right now, Arkansas has. Right now, he's the only 4-star with 24/7. Rivals has Kevin Otis and Tavion Wallace is 4 stars. 24/7 really did a nice bump down once they committed to Arkansas. They started knocking players down big time. They were really good at that. They're excellent at that. Once they commit to Arkansas, they start bumping down Kevin Otis's people, despite they're very good football players. 0-3 has Grayson Wilson and Tavion Wallace is a 4-star. And then ESPN actually has 5 Razorbacks commitments as 4-stars. Tavion Wallace, Grayson Wilson from Conway, uh, of course, Kevin Otis. They have Reginald Vaughn, defensive lineman, and then Marklin Batten, the running back from Atlanta, Texas. So, and they project him possibly to play corner, which would be even big news for Arkansas. But ESPN has Arkansas's class number 23 right now, with the 24 commitments, by the way. Counting Wallace, 24 commitments. Because, like I said, he's on. Everybody's still got him on the commitment list because he hasn't decommitted. That's all we can do. I can't tell you what the kid's going to do till he tells you. I mean, because I don't know. I mean, I'm just we admit he's taking other visits and stuff, but he's still on the commitment list with all these services because he hasn't said he's not committed. On 3 has them 32nd in the country. On 24/7 has them 31st, and then Rivals has them 28th. So that's class anywhere from 23rd with ESPN up to 32 with the on 3. So it's probably near the bottom. I don't have where they're ranked in the SEC. I didn't look that part up. I'm sure they're near the bottom, not at the bottom, but near. But that doesn't matter. Like I said, they're ranked there a lot. I mean, they were even ranked there when Bobby Petrino was winning games and Houston Nutt was winning games at Arkansas. Those classes weren't ranked great. It's just the way it works out. But Arkansas has got some good talent in this class. I mean, they've got some really good defensive linemen. Of course, the portal opens on December the 9th. 2 Razorbacks have already announced they're hitting it. Amari Wiggins, an offensive lineman, and Davion Dozier, wide receiver. They've announced they're leaving Arkansas and going to the portal. But I think Arkansas's got to hit the wide receiver, tight end, corners, definite need. Linemen, of course, they always need linemen. You always need probably a running back, maybe 2. Depending on who all stays, who all leaves, but at least 1 running back, maybe 2. I don't know, linebacker. It depends on what the kids they've got do. If they stay, then they should be okay. But you just never know who's leaving. But you do know that 3 receivers don't have any more eligibility, and then Dozier's joined them in the or going to the portal. So that's 4. You're losing for sure. So you need wide receivers. You had the 2 kids kicked off at tight end, so obviously tight end is going to be a need. I just think they need corners. Corners bad. I mean corners. And they've got some committed in the class. They've got a JUCO kid and a high school kid committed to play corner. And that's not counting the player from Atlanta, who they have as a corner at 4-star, but running back too. But that's not counting him. They got Nigel Pringle from high school in Houston, and then the junior college kid, Shannon Blair. I'm sorry, East Mississippi. I went blank on his name, but Shannon Blair is committed to play corner. They've got but those are the 2 cornerbacks committed in class. But really to me, they need to load up in the portal on corners and try to get kids who can play, because I thought like that was probably one of the weaknesses. I thought that was the biggest weakness on defense this year was cornerback, my opinion. Not safety, but not linebacker, not defensive line, but safety. I mean, but cornerback was, I thought, the weakness. Just numbers, and they're always going to need linemen. They've got 6'5", I think, offensive linemen. I think 6 defensive linemen committed in this class from high school and junior college. But they're always going to need linemen, so they're going to sign some more out of the portal. I don't think it's necessarily they need huge numbers, but they need to hit on the kids they get. That's going to be more important, getting quality, getting quality players, not so much quantity. Just hit running back, Jaquindon's gone. You don't know what, just Dominion, Russell, so we'll see what happens there. Just don't know about anybody. And I'm not singling out those kids or saying I know rumors on them. That's not the case. I'm just saying you don't know anymore, because last year whole linebacker group just about entered the portal and didn't see that coming. So it's 2024. That's where we're at. And so I'm not trying to throw out any rumors or anything else. I'm trying to stick to facts and just stick, but you don't know, but you've got to be prepared really. But I do know cornerback and tight end and wide receiver will be big needs in the portal. The rest of it, they're going to probably sprinkle in probably a need everywhere else too. But except maybe quarterback, maybe not. But other than that, and you probably won't need a kicker since you've got the high school kicker. They did pick up a commitment from the number one kicker in the country. You lose the number one kicker to Florida. Yeah, it's Florida they lost him to, and then they go get the new number one kicker in the country. He was committed to Iowa, so it's kind of. And then last Sunday night after we were on the air, they picked up Daquan Prevo from Liberty, Iowa. Telling you, that kid is 4-star, and he's as good as anybody in Texas. I mean, this kid is big time player, and so yeah, we'll see what happens there. But and it's a long time. I do like that they've got 8 commitments in 2026, and I do like those kids a lot. They picked up Jack Duckworth Friday. Yeah, Friday they picked up a commitment from him from Rockwall, Texas. So he's a cornerback in 2026. So I really like the shaping up of that 2026 class, but man, it's so far off. You just don't know. There's going to be so much happen between now and then. How many will really sign with the Hogs? That's the worry there, Courtney. Her natural concern, not necessarily a worry, but a concern. It's just so far off, and there's so many uncertainties in this day and age. You don't know what's going to happen. But
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
and you bring up a really good point. I just want to pick your brain on this really quickly before we let you go to Otis. And you talk about those rankings, right? And we always talk about the recruiting class rankings. And a lot of Hog fans get discouraged a little bit because they see Arkansas on the rankings, but then they see how many SEC teams are ranked ahead of them, right? I think even the last time I looked on certain sites, Mississippi State was ahead of Arkansas. And so you look at that, and I know people see those and they go, man, that's not where we want to be. So for anybody out there who's going, gosh, you look at these rankings and you get discouraged, you just talked about it there, but they are subjective a little bit, right? And you
they're
have
very.
to kind
I've
of
worked
keep
for
that.
all those recruiting services, and if people knew what really went into those rankings, they wouldn't be nearly as concerned. I can tell you, I work for every one of those services. I'm telling you, they're not the gospel. I know people put them out to be. They're for fans, but they're not. Fortunately, the games aren't played on who subscribes to this side at 24/7 more than that side at 24/7. Fortunately, that's not how the games are played. And that's some of the recruiting rankings, but that's not how the games are played. And so I just want people to know that. And so there's a lot of games in those recruiting rankings. And first place, nobody's seen 5,000 kids play football and can rank them all. You can go watch like a Darren McFadden or a Tim Tebow or somebody like that. And I mean, a blind man can tell you there's 5-star players, but the normal kids, you don't. The difference between the kid, a 3-star and a 4-star, a lot of times, simple fact of who they committed to, and they don't know anything about them. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. The Jordan kid from Antonio Jordan from Warren, 6'5", 6'6", 300, 6'6", 230-pound wide receiver from Warren, had no video, no rankings, didn't send in any highlight tape. I'm gonna tell you, there's probably not 10 better wide receivers in the country than Antonio Jordan at Warren. I'm telling you, he's 6'6", 230 pounds, can run like a deer. He had no interest in any recruiting rankings. He wanted to go to Arkansas. That was the only school he's interested in. And I'm just telling you, I don't care if he's a 1-star or 5-star. He's as good as probably. I doubt there's 10 receivers better than him, Courtney. So that's why I don't freak out. I don't even write about the rankings. I brought them up today because we're talking about the show. Signing day is Wednesday. And I know people do put faith in those. I don't, but because it's always, even when Arkansas was winning big under Bobby Petrino, they were finishing pretty low in the SEC and rankings. It's just going to be that way. It just is. They don't, and I don't want to just get on here and trash those guys because I mean I used to work for them, but I just know how the rankings are compiled, and they're not the gospel that people make them out to be.
I appreciate you saying that because so many people again get so caught up on those numbers. It's kind of like when the AP poll comes out and you see the rankings and you see those numbers by teams' names and everything, and you go, oh, you hold it as gospel, but again, it's subjective, guys, and they can't like you said, watch 5,000 kids all play
Well,
all play high school football. So
I know they'll say, well, look at Alabama gets number one class. Well, sure, it's easy to rank, and Alabama has a huge subscription base with all the services. So they obviously pay a lot of attention to their kids. But I'm telling you, they're not down at Warren, Arkansas watching Antonio Jordan play. They're not doing that for Arkansas side. They're not doing that. I know. They're just not. They're not going to places to see a kid play that's, I mean, Alabama, they're going to see them, and they've got a bunch of reporters at the Alabama site that go out and watch kids and stuff. But that's different. But it's easy to do that. But and I'm not saying that stars don't matter. Everything matters in recruiting. Offers, stars, how big a kid is, how fast he is, how big his heart is. Everything matters. Stars matter, but they're not the only thing that matters. That's where the mistake that people make. They think they're the only thing that matters. And there's a million things matter with, I mean, I've seen 5-star kids there's 5-stars all the time in the portal that went to schools and were bust. They were bust. The chance of 5-star being better than 3-star, sure, because probably somebody saw those 5-stars play a few times, so they got a better evaluation on them. But there are exceptions, and I mean, but I'm just telling you, when you rank a kid, you've got to look at nobody knows the size of the heart of a kid, but there's the speed, the how bad he wants it, Courtney, how bad a kid wants it. I mean, Grant Morgan was a no star out of Greenwood, Arkansas. Drew was a 2-star. And let me tell you, I mean, we saw what those kids did at Arkansas. They wanted it. Their heart, it's heart the size of a Razorback bus. So I mean that you can't always judge stuff like that. There's more to it than rankings. I'm just telling you, and I'm not saying that if Arkansas was number one, I'd tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because Arkansas is down low. I don't like I said, I didn't even know the day where Arkansas was even ranked. I looked this up so we talk about it on the show. Honestly, I didn't. I had no idea where they were ranked. I've had people griping about them to me, and I say I don't pay any attention to it. But I went and looked it up because I know people do, and we're talking recruiting, and so it's fair
Sure.
to bring it up because I know people do like them. So I wanted to bring it up. I didn't want to act like, well, I'm hiding it because Arkansas is not ranked high. But and I looked up all 4 services. Like I
Yeah.
said, they 23rd with ESPN to 32nd, I believe it was, with on 331 with 24/7 and 20 something with 28 or something with ESP. Oh, I've got it right here, 28 with Rivals. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a variance, but they're down there, But honestly, that's not a whole lot different than where they're usually ranked. I mean, there's been occasionally where they might have been in the teens, but I know one thing. Like I said, as soon as Kevin Otis committed to Arkansas, some of the services moved him down, and the kid playing for the state championship. I don't know. Gavin Garrison, who we had on here a couple of weeks ago, or 3, he's playing for state, his title out there. So these kids are winners, and
Yeah.
the other thing, you've got to get kids who can't stand to lose. So there's a
Mm.
lot of things. All I'm saying is a lot more going to rating a recruit than stars or just stars. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that kid, and I mean, I went and saw Darren McFadden play, and actually, I saw him in the 8th grade run a 40-yard dash in the 8th grade, going into the 9th grade, and I knew he was a 5-star about 5 minutes after I saw
Oh
him. So
yeah. I
there's
mean,
kids like that are no brainers, Courtney. They're
yes.
no,
Some
like
are
I
no
said.
brainers. You take one look
Yeah,
and you go, there you
those are
go.
not.
But
I mean, that's not a great feat to rate those kids. I actually found Jeremy Shockey at a junior college game in the NEO one time, and I knew he was going to be big time. And no
Mhm.
college even knew about him at the time. He got overlooked in high school because he wasn't that big right then. He was 210 pounds. Everybody thought he was too small to play tight end in college, but he wasn't. Obviously,
Yeah.
Miami lost a lot of recruits on signing day, or lost some. I'm not saying a lot, but they lost some. And later, after signing day, they went to NEO and signed Jeremy Shockey, and the rest is history, And I
Mhm.
actually
Yeah. I
told
mean,
Arkansas about it. They felt like he was too small. So I
well,
mean,
yeah.
and other college, and Jeremy told me, said there's a lot of colleges saw he's too small, and he's at NEO, and
Mhm. Yeah.
and
Otis again.
I was actually there to watch somebody else play and saw him play, and all I saw was this kid about 6'4", probably 210, catching everything thrown to him. And so I went up and talked to him after the game, and yeah, it would have been a great get for somebody. And it was Miami locked into him, and he was probably a 2-star at best. Then I don't know, 3-star, whatever he was, or he may have been a no-star. Nobody knew it, but he turned out just fine. And there's success. Jamal Anderson, I never will forget when Jamal Anderson committed to Arkansas. I had a great laugh with Jamal last summer at the football camp here. Jamal Anderson committed to Arkansas, and people raised Cain, throwing scholarships away, wasting scholarships. 3 years later, the kid's a first-round draft choice of the Atlanta Falcons. People are begging him to play a 4th year at Arkansas. The ones that didn't want him to come to start with now are begging him to play a 4th year. He was a 2-star. Marcus Monk was a 2-star. I'm just telling you, there's just more to it than star rankings.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And
I
it's
know
just
people are going to say, "Oh, he's making excuses for." I'm not making excuses for anybody. I don't. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm
and I know, and
I'm not making excuses for Arkansas because I don't think they're ever going to be ranked high. I've said that, so I don't think it's a big deal because they when they were winning under Bobby Petrino, they weren't ranked in the not top 10 or something in recruiting. They
mm,
were ranked top 10 on the field and winning, but not recruiting. And so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So I don't put a lot of emphasis in. But I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm not, I'm not on the payroll over there. I mean,
no, no,
they're
no,
big, they're
but
grown
me
men. They
or
can
you
make
are not. So
themselves. I've got on here and said today where I put the blame for the
yeah,
season, and I'm not making excuses for anybody. So that's how I feel. I'm just being honest with you. And some people just want you to just everything be mad all the time. Look, man, I'm too old. My teams have lost way too many games through the years for me to get mad, stay mad. I'd be dead by now, much as the Lakers and the Yankees and the stuff have lost. So I
yeah.
ran. I mean, I'm way past that stage. I get mad for about 30 minutes and then I'm over it. So
Yeah, hey, that's how you have to. It's perspective, right? It's a big dose of sometimes you need some perspective, and then it
yeah.
gives you a little bit of okay. And we're not trying to make excuses. If you want to be mad over it, be mad over it. Go ahead. I mean, that's
Well,
if you want to do that, go ahead. Seriously, go ahead and be mad over it. That's fine. I'm just saying, you see it all over social media, Otis. I just do. I see it all over social media. And I go, I have to ask you because you're a recruiting expert. And so I like to get
well,
your perspective. That's why.
I just want to say something too. I got on there the other last Saturday before when they were playing Louisiana Tech, and there was a guy said that beat Sam's last game, and I said no, they're not going to fire him. I said unless every source I've got says he will be back this next season.
Mm-hmm.
Every source, I said so unless every source has lied to me or every source is wrong, then he'll be back. Look, I'm not telling this guy. Need to act like I'm saying that I'm just telling you what my sources are telling me. I understand why fans are frustrated. I
Yeah.
completely. It's not fun for me to sit and watch Ole Miss beat them, like they did, and me have to write stories about it. And I've seen this year after year. So I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying people shouldn't be upset. What I'm telling you, as far as that goes, I was just telling what my sources were telling me about Sam's job status. I'm not, and they didn't ask me, they don't ask me, what do you think? I'm just telling you what my sources have told me. And then it said either they're wrong or or he'll be back. And
Yeah.
that is unless he retires. Now they did say he could, if Sam retired, then he wouldn't, but I was just told he would not be fired, is what I was told. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not taking sides on that, Courtney. I'm just saying you pass along what I was told by
Right.
sources. I'm not getting involved. Look, it don't matter what I think. They're not what I think the board of trustees, Hunter Yurchek couldn't care less. I mean, they don't
No.
care whether I think I could sit here and write he should be back and they'd be idiots to fire him, or I could write that he should be fired and they'd be idiots to keep. It's not going to change anything. So
Mm,
why should I'm not getting involved in that. It's not my job. That's not
no.
my job is to report about the team and opinions about that without trying to hire or fire coaches. I'm not into
Yeah,
that. And if this is
absolutely.
somebody else, so be it. Like I said, that's fine. If that makes you mad, then so be it. But I'm not making excuses.
Yeah, and I've said this so many times. We're running out of time here on the Zoom, but you're exactly right, Otis. There's so many people that want you in media to get up on a soapbox and say fire Sam Pittman, but that's not exactly. I mean, again, when we do our jobs and when we do them effectively, nobody in media anywhere at Alabama, at Auburn, at Kentucky, I can name any school. They're not getting on a soapbox and saying fire this coach, because that's just not
Well,
what
what
you
does it
do with
do?
some
It
journalistic
doesn't
integrity,
change
guys.
anything.
I'm
I
just
can say
saying,
that, Courtney.
it's not what you
Yeah.
do. So
I could do
now,
even if I did that, Courtney, it's not going to change anything. They're
no,
still going to decision over there whether they want to keep Sam or not. Doesn't based on what I think, and so
no,
it doesn't matter. So why should I go stick my neck out and do stuff like that? It doesn't matter what I think. The U of A is going to do and that's what they should do. They're going to do what they think is right, and that's what they should do. You can agree or disagree with it, and that's fine. And I get why people. Hey, I fully get why people are frustrated.
yeah,
People act like media is not frustrated watching them get beat by by Florida. Ole Miss and
yeah,
LSU and the
yeah.
scores run up. I mean, that gets old to us going to
Yeah.
Missouri and get beat there.
I've
I mean,
I've tweeted Otis. I've tweeted multiple times This is unacceptable. This is
Yeah.
unacceptable. And I've even tweeted out, I think it's time for a change. I think it is time to maybe bite the bullet and make a change. Does that mean Hunter Yurchek is listening to me? No. Does that mean, I mean, he's
It
not?
doesn't matter what we think at the end of the day, and that's why I just don't get involved in that because it doesn't matter what I think, and I can see both sides, but I do know why people are frustrated. I fully get that. I mean, it is frustrating to watch. Well, I mean, it's frustrating to me that, as I said when we started this show, you and I both said that losing in week 12 the same way you lost in week 2. You'd be an idiot not to be frustrated with that. How can you
Yeah.
not be frustrated with that? And so it is frustrating, and I fully get that. But that's I don't know what else to say, but I just some people want to change it. When you say something, you're making excuses, and I'm not making excuses for anybody. They're big people over there. They're big and grown men. They can make their own excuses, and they haven't asked me to make excuses for them. So I
Yeah.
mean, I give you my opinion. You can agree with it or disagree with it. I really don't care.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
I really don't.
that's the beautiful thing about being in our jobs is that we can give our opinions. You can agree or disagree. That's the beautiful thing about America. Otis, we are running out of time. I am looking at this Zoom ticking down
Yeah,
here.
I
So
see it counting down.
but we're ranting, and that's totally understandable. We're gonna have you on next week, as always, for another edition of the Arkansas Football Recruiting Report. Thank you so much, Otis, for joining us this Sunday, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Courtney. Appreciate you, girl.